Hello and welcome to the Inside Britball podcast, joined by Andy Taylor, joined by Stuart and Isaac, as always, as we come to break down week 2 fixtures and look towards week 3 of the BUCS season. Guys, we're straight into it, aren't we? We've got 22 fixtures to look over. Not that we're going to go through all of them from last weekend, and we've got another 22 coming up as well. We will also talk about the poll, which we broke down last week, but we've got an update on that for you. And then we've got some last man standing updates to bring you as well, haven't we, Stuart? So we'll get into all of that. But straight away, let's get into the results of this week, and as always we start with the Premiership tier. So let's have a little look here what we've got. Plenty of tight fixtures and plenty of not so tight fixtures. So Isaac, where do you want to start here across the Premiership tier that happened last weekend?
I think we start international. Really, it's like when we talk about the Premier adult poll, it's business resumed, isn't it? We got UWE Bullets that. It's not the 104 from last year, so it's an improvement for Beckett, but still, with the hype that Beckett had going into it, he thought it'd be a lot closer of a contest. Is that just it's the first game? There's a lot of new faces. Is it just they need time to mix and gel together, or is it a cause for concern again for Beckett? So we'll have to wait a few weeks to see what they look like against the likes of Loughborough and Durham. But then when you look at the Loughborough game, Nottingham Gold have started the same way as what they did last year. And, when they can pick up wins against the Loughborough, Beckett, Durham, when they come to UWE, it's a different game. It's it's more of a challenge for them. But with the little wins they can get against Loughborough and Beckett and stuff like that, then it helps them massively going further into the season.
We did, I think it might have been me, but someone said last week that we wondered whether this would be a case of the Leeds Beckett have got better, but have UE also got better on last year as well? Because they have continued to add. And actually, we know from our conversations with Pete Jones and Ethan from our Champion Series, go to our YouTube page if you haven't seen that, because that landed today as well. But, they've said that some of their players from UE last year are all there again, and they've still sent out a load of recruitment sort of messages out there, haven't they, of what they've been able to bring on. So I just wonder whether this is just business as usual from last year in terms of these two together. And actually, as you say, that the improvements might start to be shown for Leeds Beckett when they face potentially Gold, but definitely Loughborough, Durham, and alike as well. So Stuart, we got a couple of nuggets about these two games as well, didn't we? Some feedback through the socials. Is there anything to add to what Isaac said around those games?
I'll add my 2 penneth on that Bullets Beckett game before we get too much further. It's a little bit like that meme that you see where that guy's slapping the plaster on a massive water tank. It's kind of like that. UWE Bullets is that massive tank of water that you just can't quite hold back. But Beckett have done a great job this summer recruiting. And as you say, I think, yes, when we see them play everybody who's not called UWE, we'll probably see a truer version of who Leeds Beckett are, because they'll have also had another couple of weeks to gel and to get round to looking at their playbooks, heads in playbooks. So yeah, I think they'll see it as a 40-point better off in terms of from last season, from that 100 and whatever it was, 104 I think. But yeah, there's only so much you can hold the Bullets back. We're also seeing a big divide in terms of the width of scores between the north and the south. So the games in Loughborough, Leeds and NTU were obviously weather affected. And we've got a couple of bits of information around that saying that, yeah, the weather wasn't particularly great. I'm sure Isaac can vouch that in the north it's either liquid sunshine or it's raining. So it's one of the two. But yeah, so a couple of people that were at the Loughborough Nottingham game have said that it was a bit of a sluggish start from both teams. The Loughborough quarterback went down injured in the second quarter, I think it was, that they went down. So hope that's not too bad an injury, and we hope they're back sort of leading that squad back, because Loughborough's always one of those where they're up there, they're always challenging. And yeah, to lose your starting quarterback in Q2 of game 1 is less than ideal. So yeah, hopefully they have a speedy recovery. Again, we're not sure what the injury is. We haven't been told and divulged that information, so we hope they're all right. It doesn't look like Gold, particularly continued momentum, shall we say. I think they started last season with a win over Bullets, didn't they? I think that was like the marquee fixture of week 1 last year. So to get a different fixture under their belt, to get themselves off and running, they'll just be glad that they came away with a W. And then you sort of look down the north and south. Northumbria Mustangs have done themselves a massive favour by getting that win over Leeds Griffins. I think that's a big sort of one in the win column for them. NTU, we kind of said some stuff about them last week. Is this them actually being better than we think, or is it Warwick not quite being as good as we think they were? Did they sort of peak last year and they've lost a lot? I can sort of see Isaac nodding. I still haven't sent my form out for like feelers from teams. I have designed it, I just haven't sent it out. And then in the south, Portsmouth have really not done themselves any favours, have they really? Cardiff have come out and done what they want to do and kind of bring themselves up from the bottom of that Prem South. It looks like they may well be fighting in the middle or towards the top of the Prem South come the end of the season. It'd just be interesting because they play Brunel this weekend. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that matchup's like.
Got to take week 1 with a pinch of salt, and I know it's week 2, but for a lot of these teams, this is the first time they ever got out on the field, isn't it? So don't know about you, Isaac, but I didn't, certainly when I was putting out my poll ballot, I wasn't reading too much into the 4-point win that Warwick got over NTU. The same with the Northumbria 3-point win over Leeds, because we've got more data points for Leeds and the Portsmouth down in the south, haven't we? They're probably a little bit more worried about them than I am about the others. But nonetheless, a win's a win. Travelling up to Nottingham, first game of the season, can always be a tricky aspect for the likes of Warwick, but they do what they've done for the last season and a bit and won, haven't they? And any other comments from you?
Yeah, well, from what I've been told and stuff like that from the NTU Warwick game, the blue weather was horrendous. NTU, the playbook they're running this year is different to what they did last year. It, a new QB, a new kind of young receiver core. But yeah, apparently the NTU defense was really good and kept Warwick quiet most of the game. So yeah, I think that's something they're going to have to lean on this year, especially with the style that they're going to be playing on offense. The defense is something that's going to have to, really, really show up from, especially when they start playing Leeds and Northumbria teams that who could be challenging at the bottom end of that the Prem North.
Really got to touch on the tough start that Portsmouth have seen for the first 2 games, haven't they? And now they play host to SGS this week, which again, we never know what's going to happen with SGS, but they're a formidable program nonetheless. But that's a really tough start for Portsmouth, isn't it? And now, I think what Isaac, you might have said in your preview that is this a relegation battle? You assumed that for pre-season, didn't you, with Cardiff and where they've been in and around that for the last few seasons. But this is a mighty boost to their season as well for Cardiff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's I think that a lot of people would have thought that Cardiff, maybe it's their time. The last 3 seasons now, either they should have been relegated, but then the technicality saved them, or last year where it came to the last couple of games of the season. Most people would have thought this is it, but no, Cardiff, especially this week, they showed what they're about and how dangerous they really can be.
Any thoughts from you around the Cardiff game, Stuart, or do you think we just hold our tongue and wait and see?
No, going solely off the result, it's a really strong start from them, and yeah, we'll head over to our friends at Depth Chart Sports on Sunday and watch the live stream of Brunel Cardiff, and get to actually see what scheme they're running, what players they've got, and whether Brunel's strong start was because of their own skill or whether it was because of Portsmouth, and whether Cardiff's really strong start was because of their own skill or poor Portsmouth. We'll see more on Sunday, won't we?
Mm-hmm. We will. We'll probably break that down in a little while for sure. So have a look at Tier 1 then, because there's plenty of games that went on in Tier 1 this weekend. Although we did have some that fell to the sword. Edinburgh Aberdeen didn't happen. No, I don't think we got any notes on as to why. Sheffield Hallam Warriors derby has been postponed. And unfortunately, the Kingston Cougars forfeited their game to the Kent Falcons, getting them a -2 points to start off the season, which is obviously a shame to see in the first weeks of the season. But Stuart, I'll give you first dibs here. Where do you want to go with some of the results that stood out to you across the week 2 results?
I really want to go south, but I'm going to steal one of Isaac's, unfortunately. I'm going to go Leicester Longhorns, Sheffield Sabres. Certainly the Sabres coming up. Last season, they did really well indeed. Tier 2 last year. But to come up and play a Leicester Longhorns team who, for years have played at this level and have been a really strong outfit. They've got less than ideal grass pitch on the far side of a massive playing fields, so it's a difficult place to go and play, and full credit to them. It might only be a 12-point win, but it's still a win in the first game of the season, so yeah, full credit to them. A couple of people still asking why Bournemouth have got -5 points in the table, but yet they still won. Just come back to that and revisit it, that they declared an admin error last year, so they've still got points to recoup before they then start climbing up that table. But they took care of game number 1 against, again, another side who is synonymous with Tier 1 football. And OBU coming into Tier 2 as well, in their beautiful kits, which you guys are not going to argue with, are you? They had a long old trip over to East Anglia and held them to sorry, I'm zooming in. It's not a 0, it's an 8. Held them to 26-8 and sort of took away that victory. So it'd be interesting to see how well they compete going through the rest of the season. But yeah, for the new boys, new people in this division, let's not assume, new people in this division, they can certainly hold their heads up high and say, yeah, we're going to compete at this level.
Apart from one.
Momentum. Apart from one. Go on. Head in.
The Edgehill Vikings, talking to one of their coaches, I think half time when I think they were 20-0 down, just after half time they put all the rookies in, they conceded another 21. It wasn't a good showing for a side that you'd have hoped to put up a lot more, because you look at the MMU Eagles, and I think I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago, that they're definitely relegation threatened as well, just like the Edgehill Vikings are. And to lose that heavily in a game that at the back end of the season, if it's a 1 or 2, maybe even 3-point differential, you're kind of thinking, right, we've still got a chance to stay in the division. Whereas now, that chance is all but gone to get that head-to-head victory over them. And then also in the Northern, you got the Rams taking on the Manchester Tyrants. Apparently, watching the Instagram stories from that game again, the Rams they looked like the UCLan Rams, Lancashire Rams, but it was I think it was a blocked field goal returned for a touchdown was their only score of the day. I really think that, especially in the North this week, the bad weather affected the quality of football, and that's why we're seeing the scores like the Rams that last year were blowing teams out of the water, where they've now got a low score. Same with the Sheffield Sabres as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, the same with the Prem. I'm not going to worry about too much around these teams that we expected to do well in their first game and so on. But I think that the guys who can take a lot of heart from this are the ones that you've mentioned, who are using that momentum that they've taken from promotion from Tier 2 into Tier 1 and took it to travelled as well. I know Sheffield to Leicester's not a huge distance, but it's still a travel, isn't it? And Oxford to East Anglia isn't exactly close either. And to do that first game of the season and continue your momentum, it just shows you what a great job those programs are doing. Biggest surprise to me out of all that card is one that we haven't mentioned, which was the gap in the scoring between Napier Knights and Stirling. Sterling, which has been an absolute stalwart at the highest levels. You guys taught me last year, not so long ago, they were national champs, weren't they? And now you've got this gaping hole between the pair of them now. It's probably a reflection on how well that Napier Knights conglomerate, should we call it, is doing, because I know they're separate entities, and but there will be crossover where there has to be naturally, and it's great to see how their U19s, their Team Scotland, and all that high performance is clearly translating into the Edinburgh Napier Knights in what is a statement victory in my mind to start the season. Albeit, I will put in that disclaimer that it's only week 2; things can change, but plenty to ruminate over when we're trying to do our ballots for the poll for sure. There's plenty to be talking about, isn't there? Anything else before we go on to tier 2?
You beat me to it with those Scottish games. You're right, that conveyor belt at Napier Knights, and with the Knights led by Coach Laird, who's done a fantastic job at Napier for a number of years. You're starting to see the fruits of their labour, and yes, I think they may well appear on several people's power rankings and or writers polls this season, with maybe alongside Glasgow. So I think a few teams that are south of the border will have to get their coaching contacts on the go, ready for scout film of those two going into the playoffs. I think, I know I'm calling it very, very early, but yeah, watch out for Glasgow and Napier Knights going forward. Yeah,
100%. No, I think you mentioned that Southwest division. I think we had a little bit of a giggle looking at how that standings looks at the moment, isn't it? You got 3 teams at the top of the division because they haven't played, and then Bournemouth, who have got a 100% record but are at the bottom with -5. It just looks odd, doesn't it? But I'm sure that'll rectify itself in weeks to come for sure. Let's have a look at tier 2 then. We didn't have that many, but enough to be talking about across tier 2 anyway. Isaac, where do you want to go here? Because there's a lot of close games, isn't it, really? But where were you looking when you're looking at these results?
I think I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago that Midlands 2A is really going to be difficult to call because they haven't got any big fish yet anymore. You look in the last 2 years, it were Derby, who were in it for a while. Who was in it before them? There was another big team who was in that before them who didn't get promoted. Who did get promoted? Sorry, Nottingham Green. So yeah, this is that division issue were really hard to call because Lincoln, who have always looked dangerous but could never get over the line. AIU, that in recent years have just been building and building and building. And then you got DMU and Cambridge that you never really knew what you're going to get out of. Like last year, Cambridge had a really, really good results and were challenging Lincoln and AIU. But that's a massive win for AIU to get the 2 points on the board already, to be sat at the top of the table after week 2, but week 1 kind of thing. So that's a massive win for them. Yeah, it's only a point, but still, a win's a win, and you take that, though, yeah. And then also that Sunderland game that we said it was going to be close. Sunderland recruited heavily. York are a good team, anyways. We thought it was going to be close, especially when you take into account that you're playing on the end of a bloody international runway. So yeah, I think that there was again, Instagram stories were out all the time, and yeah, it's really good to see that Div 2 or Tier 2 is getting the coverage that many Prem and Division 1 teams are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we certainly messaged ARU after that victory, and they suggested that it was a really tough conditions to play in, which is, they said that it was a hard fought game, and the cold and the mud made it a hard scoring game. So good for them to come out on top there for sure, and in a division that you can't really call, can you? Because Lincoln and Cambridge were the playoff sides last year, and the 3 came out of this division last year, didn't they? And it's only ARU's second victory, and if you add last season to this season, it's been a while since they've had a run. So it'll be good to see how they take that momentum into their next game. Stuart, what else for you? Do you want to talk about?
Let's go Southwest. The Bullets 2s, I did mention last week that they'll be looking to get off to a fast start against Gloucestershire under sort of head coach Astley's second season, and they certainly have done that. I know they had a scrimmage against Birmingham a few weeks ago, and by all accounts, put up a really good account of themselves against an ex-Prem team. So I think they're potentially going to be one of the teams to watch out for in that Southwest. The Swansea-Worcester game wasn't quite played to its entirety, so I believe it was called towards the end of the fourth. I think Worcester, reading the news flash, the BAFRA news flash, it was called towards the end of the fourth quarter with a lack of available linemen. So Worcester have done lots of good things this off season, but it just looks like that they may not have offensive linemen. I think they get the week off this weekend to sort of rest up those injuries and come back again. I know that's one of the games that caught
you're right.
Another certain pundit out, didn't it? We were tagged in and pretty much a call out, shall we say, calling Worcester Royals out, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, we'll come on to the last person standing later on. We won't go too much into that. The biggest surprise to me, I think, is that Southern 2A, just sort of the distance between the winners and the losers in that division. I said about the Reading Knights looking to sort of want to sort of not get bogged down in this division. They've certainly done themselves a lot of favours with that huge win over Royal Holloway, who again are no pushovers themselves. Sort of they would have been looking, I think, to challenge. But yeah, Reading have certainly stunted that. And then the Sussex Saxons, just that looks like a heck of a game, doesn't it? What's that? 71 points scored. And again, I think these games were potentially self-officiated, and we covered about the number of games last year in the adult contact that had high-scoring games when referees weren't involved, not letting the people play. So yeah, that's it's good to see. And then we go from one extreme to the other, where Imperial Quimble was 7-6. So yeah, it was interesting to see. But again, week one. Results. Let's see if these teams. Although to be fair, the Southeast was pretty closely contested last year, wasn't it? When we got games played.
Well,
so
I was gonna say something like that in terms of that Southern 2A. If it wasn't for Oxford Brookes, Saxons would have been the pick of the division last year. They came across an Oxford Brookes University who were on fire last year, and so they finished 4-1 last year, and their only loss was to OBU. They've continued that, right? And so now the question is, are Reading just going to slot in where OBU were last year, or is it going to be a 2 to 3 horse race in this division where you've got Surrey still to play? We don't know what Solent are until they start playing the next couple of weeks as well, and that's turning out to be a feisty division to try and get 2 to 3 probably in the playoffs. You would have thought based on last year's results, but nonetheless, very interesting results that have happened there. But yeah, far too early, isn't it, to make any assumptions? I think the hot takes will come down the line, won't they? I'm sure. So, like, obviously, they're the results from this week that we've broken down. We've obviously got to go and do a ballot for a poll. I'm sure some of us have already done it. We're recording on a Thursday, so if you're like me, probably a bit late for it, but we'll see. But what we're going to do now is we've agreed with our collaborators that we're going to do it every 2 weeks, and we're going to do 25 teams now, aren't we? So exciting to see how that expands things, and it made it a lot harder, didn't it? Certainly trying to fit 25 onto a page when we've only got like 70 odd to choose from anyway. But do you expect any big shakeups, Perrier? What you're thinking? I know we kind of touched upon this with the results from last week, but with this week's results, trying to fit in 25, are you expecting some major shakeups, or is it more just tweaking your pre-season sort of expectations as you go along? You want to jump in first?
I'll go because I think I've done the most analysis on this, as you may have seen in our spreadsheet. So I think I touched on last week, I've tried to take into account the results from last week and last season, but now I've got a bit more data to go on. So I think when it was suggested we were going to get to 25, I was like, okay, how can I make this realistic rather than just plugging in names in that sort of bottom 18 or 15 down to 25. And I think that was more looking at which tier 1 teams are most likely to make the playoffs. And that will, again, that'll change and that'll evolve throughout this month, November, December. And I think the more true data points we get, the more accurate we'll start being. But yeah, my analytical brain went, okay, spreadsheet, okay, formulas, put them together, and it spat out at 25. And then I've tweaked 1 or 2 with my limited knowledge in some cases of what teams have done in the off season. So yeah, that's how my 25 has come together.
What do you think, Isaac?
We couldn't be more opposite. My formula's all up here, right? I forgot that some teams existed. I thought, just teams that haven't played yet, I completely forgot about. So yeah, mine's were kind of like a hodgepodge of, well, who won last week? Whereabouts are they going? So yeah, I mean, a lot of Div 2 teams are in there. Tier 2 teams are in there. And mine. But no, I think that it'll be a little bit of tweaking until we get to see every single team. And then we can start to judge how good people are and everything like that. But still, I'll be using the formula in my head. And just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you guys offline that I've got some tiers in my head. So I've got, sorry to use the term tier in BUCS when we've already got tiers, but, groupings and I'd be interested to see. I think that some of the big talk, and I'm looking down because my scribblings are in front of me, so apologies, not great visuals looking at the top of my head, but I found it difficult trying to, where am I going to fit the bottom of the Prem with the cream of the crop of the tier 1, and I think that's probably where I found the biggest how on a power rankings or on a neutral field, how much better are the likes of Leeds, NTU, Exeter, Cardiff, but Portsmouth, if you want to put them in there, than the likes of Lancashire, Bournemouth, OBU. There's probably others that I'm thinking of, and that's probably the trick. And it's difficult, isn't it, with the lack of stats, lack of data that we've got. So it is plucking out of thin air in a sense, isn't it? But yeah, probably found them the hardest. Not many tier 2 in mine, I've got to say.
You got to spread the love. That's all I was thinking. You got to spread the love everywhere.
So when we see YSJ or York come up,
when the Bradford Bears, who no longer exist at number 1, I'm sorry, guys. Okay,
I'm not so sure it's going to be YSJ. Yeah.
when there's a bunch of teams receiving votes and it's all northwest and northeast teams, like there's Isaac.
Just the Bangor Mud Dogs are still on there, but yeah.
Bangor Lions.
Oh yeah, they're the Lions now. Yeah, brilliant.
I was going to say, when we start seeing the Bradford Bears appear in the power rankings, that's when we need to get worried and think, okay, those formulas in Isaac's head,
just where we belong.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. That's hilarious. Righto. Okay, well, let's look ahead then to this week because we've got another 22 fixtures to get through. But as always, we will just give you our thoughts on some fixtures, some tasty fixtures that we think are coming up this week. So let's, as always, start off with the Prem, have a little look to see what we think around it, go into a bit more detail with these guys, don't we? So the first start of the litmus test, isn't it, for Leeds Beckett? Potentially, we'll have more data points, won't we, in terms of where are they at with regards to their program, in terms of their recruiting, and then Loughborough have got the lovely host duties of the UE Bullets. So, guys, in the Prem National, start off with what's our thoughts on these 2 fixtures, which we've probably touched upon a little bit in the results as well, isn't it? Isaac, do you want first?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, that Loughborough UE game, Loughborough potentially without the starting QB, who was former GB, I think it's Bailey Mann, who's the QB there, former GB under 19s QB, that's going to be a tough test for them. I think it could be potentially it's a higher score than Leeds Beckett was the week before for UE. And then the Beckett Gold game, I think it'll be tough for Gold to see if they can keep going and if they can keep clicking. And then it's also going to be a thing of Leeds. You're at home. You don't have to make the 6-hour journey, however long it is. It's a lot more favourable for you. But still, I think it's going to be a tough test nonetheless. The elements might play a part as well, where it is, and just the most windiest place on the earth somehow in that one little 4G pitch. But no, it definitely is going to be. It's going to be a tricky game for both sides. Leeds Beckett, are they for real? Has the recruitment worked? And Nottingham Gold, can they stand up to the test of an entirely new Beckett team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stuart, anything for yourself to add?
I'm going to keep it fairly short, fairly retro, but when you used to do the pools for the old English Football League, and it was home win or away win, I think I'm going with away win and away win, I'm afraid. I can't see past Gold and Bullets this weekend. I think Beckett's will show us what they are about this week, but yeah, I don't think that they will beat Gold, and unfortunately, I just don't think that Loughborough will beat Bullets either.
874, that fixture last year was Loughborough UE, and based on the first week of UE standard, you might be seeing something similar. What about in the north and south then, Isaac? What do you want to touch upon with these ones?
I think that Northumbria NTU game is going to be really interesting to see where both teams are. You look at Northumbria last week, a last-minute victory away at Leeds was huge for them. But now they've got to travel an extra an hour and a half, from what they did last week to Nottingham. Nottingham not playing the best football in the world. Hopefully they can regroup this week. See what worked last week, and really really show what they're about as well. So yeah, it's going to be tough because it's going to see, can Northumbria get dragged into that bottom half, or are they going to show that the momentum they've had from getting promoted from all Division 2 and then from Tier 1, and now going to the Prem, can they really show that they have the potential to go back to back to back?
And what about you, Stuart? Do you want to have a little look at the south?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Brunel Cardiff, as I've already covered.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, looking forward to tuning into the live on that one. And for me, I'm really excited is probably not the right word. Intrigued by which SGS are going to come out this season. We've obviously seen their U19 regionals team, which I'm sure I read somewhere that they'd called almost like their under 18s team, not do as well as we normally have seen SGS Pride teams do in years gone by. So I'm just interested to see how that spreads to the BUCS Prem team. Judging on results from Portsmouth, I think this is probably a kind start to SGS. I think they're probably looking at this going, okay, if we've got a lot of turnover and we've got a lot of newer players, who would we have rather faced in this division? And based on the results from the last 2 weeks, I think they'd have probably gone, yeah, please, let's have Portsmouth. But again, on the other side of it, Portsmouth are probably going, okay, we've got 2 tough tests out of the way. Everybody's saying that SGS are a bit weakened this year. Let's really take it to them. So, yeah, that's whilst I'm watching the Brunel Cardiff game, I think I'm going to sort of have eyes on socials and see what that Portsmouth SGS game finishes like.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to see what SGS Pride team come out. Obviously, what are they going? They start off slow. They started off slow last year, didn't they? More on offense than on defense. They had an incredible defense all year round, which is probably going to be the biggest problem for Portsmouth, isn't it? Is that they're going to have to try and score on SGS, aren't they? Whereas it might still be a tight affair. It was 3 to 14 in this fixture last year, but that was obviously with Portsmouth riding high heading into the playoffs, and we'll see if they can turn around their last 2 results, or is it just that Brunel and Cardiff are actually really good this year, and they're going to be up there with SGS, and that's probably why we're really excited for that fixture, and it feels like that's the big fixture, isn't it, out of this tier? That will give us the greatest insight for the rest of the season. Anything else to add before we go on to Tier 1, which is so big that it's on 2 graphics? Great. Let's have a little look then. Tier 1 North, because there's plenty going on here. We've got a full slate of Scotland again. We've got a local rivalry ×2 in the north, and then obviously Midlands and Yorkshire rounding that off. Stuart, where would you like to head to first in this slate?
I'll firstly offer up an apology to the Scottish teams. You weren't playing all in the same place. You were in 3 separate venues. And looking through books, there may not be many times that you actually do play in three back-to-back games. So apologies for that. I will do better research before I open my mouth next time. But yes, I think that bottom one, sort of keeping our eye on Napier Knights, seeing whether they keep their foot to the gas and go for 35 or more again against Heriot Watt, or whether they can bounce back from last year. It'd be interesting to see whether Glasgow again can keep their momentum going, and it'll potentially be even more interesting to see whether Aberdeen play Stirling. And then if they do play, what happens there? Obviously, we don't know why the game was postponed. It just said, thanks for understanding and everything. So it might be a genuine reason that they wanted to push the game back. But yeah, Aberdeen last year did not have the best track record, and I just hope that they can compete this year. So yeah, I really want to see.
They've got to earn our trust, haven't they?
100%. I want to see three full games in Scotland, and then we can talk about it and break it down, and potentially still have 2 Scottish teams in the top 25s.
Mm-hmm. And Isaac, I'm sure you got plenty to talk about with these fixtures, especially when you're thinking about your preview as well. There's some tasty fixtures straight off the bat here, isn't there? In the other 2 divisions.
Yeah, it's you look at Liverpool. They had a really disappointing end to the season last year. Were it a misbooked coach or something that sent them down? If they play that game, is this game ever going to happen? The Rams will see that as a fact of, this is a side that, they'll be challenging at the top of this division with us. Let's, set our marker straight away. So that's going to be really interesting to see what them 2 are like. That MMU, can they build from last week? We saw that Manchester didn't have the best start, but, a derby always brings out the best in both teams. So that's going to be really, really interesting. We end up seeing this like 2 times, 3 times a year sometimes. So let's see if this can actually, make something happen. Leicester then against Green. We need to see how Green play. I'll be really interested in that one. But definitely, if Green can carry on like they had last year and get into the playoffs again and show that they have the chance to be in the Prem, it'd be really, really, really good. And then we see a repeat of the Tier 2 North final from last year as well. Can Derby get revenge for that? Be really, really tough test against a really well-coached Sheffield Sabres side that have already got a win under the belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very interested to see what Liverpool are doing. Obviously, close to the heart. I know a lot of the coaches personally, and are they dropping like a rock, or are they going to find their feet here in Tier 1 and take it to the Rams, challenge them? Have they been able to recruit as well as add to the experience and the talent that they already had? They've had some offensive coordinator changes. I'm not sure whether. I'm sure Rio's still around the program, and I'll be very intrigued by that one in particular from a personal point of view. But nonetheless, imagine if the Sabres go 2-0, or if Derby are able to pick up their first win of the season. That's 2 great starts for the Tier 2 teams from last year. So yeah, very intrigued to see what happens in the north. Let's go south then. Anything standing out to you here, Isaac, if you want to have first dibs here? Because there's, again, some crackers.
That southern one here that's like really sticking out. Is Birmingham going to be able to bounce straight back? I think it's going to be a tougher test than they think, especially when you look at the side like Oxford Brooks that last week showed that they can beat anyone, really. Hertfordshire, obviously, playing against Birmingham. Can they go back to the Prem? It's been a while since they've been in there. But, this is really the week where we start to see what teams are about. But yeah, that Oxford game, I think that's kind of an easier one to call than any others, really. You look how good Oxford Brooks were last season. You look how good they were last week. And you can't really bet against them at the minute. They are just, they're a well coached, really good, talented squad.
Well, Hearts have got the starting quarterback for London Blitz, haven't they? So he's coming in from the national championship victory there. Have they been able to put recruitment around it? Corey, is it Badri? Is it? Probably butchered that name, but yes, certainly quarterback that can definitely play. And have they got the talent around him to challenge the ex-Prem side? Stuart, anything else from you?
Isaac called out the two fixtures that I was looking forward to talking about. So nope. I mean, to be fair, it's it's his fair share. He knows somewhere in the south he can talk about. It's all good. The Cavaliers Cup is the Oxford Derby. So yeah, looking forward to that. I know there's a big sort of fanfare about that. There's advertisements about it in terms of a big game day. So looking forward to seeing whether OBU can sort of compete against a stable tier 1 team in Oxford, as well as it being their sort of local rivalry. For me, in the southwest, Plymouth Southampton. Plymouth coming up from T2 last year against the Southampton team who were 3-5, I think I just saw somewhere. So it'd be interesting to see whether they can get that victory in that game, or whether Southampton just proved to be a little bit too tough for them. I'm pretty sure that Bournemouth will get past the Bath Killer Bees and chew up some more of that points loss that they have. And then down in the southeast, just looking forward to both of those games. Both of them are going to really sort of challenge each other in terms of both fixtures, both teams. And it will start to pan out whereby we'll get to see whether that sort of split, where there was two teams at the top, two at the bottom and one in the middle. I know a couple of teams have moved around a little bit, but it'd be interesting to see and give us more of a flavour of who's done what in the off season. I think KCL Kingston is probably my favourite out of the two. I think that's probably going to be the most entertaining game, but that's not to say that UCL Brighton won't be. I just feel that game will probably go the way of UCL. Brighton obviously kind of got moved around a little bit and promoted and here, there and everywhere. It'd be interesting to see how they compete, obviously coming up into this tier. But yeah, I just feel that KCL Kingston's going to be the one for me in the southeast.
100%. A lot of playoff teams from last year, isn't it? And I think that's their first game for some of them, and we'll be interested, including Kingston, who was supposed to play this week but didn't manage it. So, what can they bring to the table across this tier? Plymouth, I do wonder about Plymouth, and I was thinking about Plymouth when I was doing my poll as well, because obviously they've come up into tier 1, and they didn't score a lot, but they didn't concede a lot in tier 2, did they? And they still managed to finish on top of their respective division, so they deserve to be in tier 1. But does it translate? Is just my biggest question there. With into what have they been able to add in the off season? So I'll be very interested to add to your point there, Stuart, how they do in tier 1 for sure.
They tend to be quite cyclical. They'll have a couple of years where they'll be tier 1 and they'll drop down, and have a couple of years where they're tier 2 and regroup and bounce back up. So I think for them, this could be sort of their consolidation year. Again, I haven't been able to get the spreadsheet out to find out what their recruitment class is like, or their retention class. So yeah, I feel like this could be their sort of consolidation year. I'm sure they'll be looking to kick on as well, but certainly when you go up, you look to sort of cherry pick a few fixtures to go, this is the one that we could, and I just feel that Plymouth could be sort of looking at this one going, Southampton were 3-5 last year, we can pick a win off here, especially at home in Plymouth.
Yeah, 100%. Let's have a little look at tier 2. Last but no means least, there's not a lot of them, but still plenty of talking points for sure. Isaac, I'll give you first dibs because I'm sure you're interested in a couple of those fixtures.
Yeah, it's the two northern ones. Surprise. Staffordshire against the Lancaster Bombers. That's there is possibly the two of the favourites for the. I mean, apart from LJMU, but we saw the start of the season that Staffordshire had last year, and then it kind of tailed off. I think that's because of player availability, and they had a really, really good QB at the start of the season, and kind of went from there. Lancaster has always been a good side no matter what. Like, they have just had a great side and a strong team. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can go back to winning ways. And like that Northwestern's has opened up massively because you've got Staffordshire who could easily take it. Lancaster could take it. You've got Salford. No one knows what they're going to be like. Nothing's happened yet with Salford, so it's going to be really, really interesting that Northwestern 2, just to see how good it is. And then you look to the northeast and Hull, that by the looks of it on social media have lost a lot of their better players. The likes of a lot of them who played for Scunthorpe and Yorkshire have all gone now. They've all graduated. They're out of the program. They've got a new head coach. They're all decent defensive coordinator. What's that going to be like in his first season? Is this another side that we could see stuck in Tier 2 for a while? And then you got the Whiteshire Jaguars that realistically anything can improve from last season, where I think they went winless. They looked poor in nearly every game they played, and this is going to be quite a big test for their new head coach as well, the new DC. And yeah, it's a tough one to call, is that one, because the new head coaches and everything like that. It's just going to be a really, really tough one, but I think it has the chance to be a real Tier 2 kind of a game, especially with the YSJ head coach trying to implement the stuff he did at Bradford. So it's going to be a really, really interesting one to see.
Stuart, do you want to talk about those teams that Isaac can't pronounce?
I'll talk about the teams that Isaac can't talk about.
I'm going to try.
You're going to try? Go on.
Aberystwyth.
Nailed it.
And Gloucestershire.
Yeah, nailed it.
What are you on about? You literally just needed to say it. What I will say is these two games are kind of carbon copies of each other from last season. So you've got one team who were kind of knocking on the door of playoffs versus teams that were sort of towards the bottom of the divisions. Aberystwyth and Surrey will both be looking to sort of take victories in both of these games, and Gloucester and Solent will just be looking to build on better foundations than they did last season. So Solent will literally just be looking to get a victory on the board, which they didn't manage to achieve last season. And I just think that it depends on how well they've done this off season. I really want to get this form out so that I can start knowing this sort of information when we come on pods. So guys, if you do get this dropping in your inboxes, share it and send it back to us so we can start sort of knowing these bits and bobs about you, because honestly my work schedule doesn't allow me to get out and watch many games, so the live streams that we watch are invaluable as well. So what I do know is that Gloucester again didn't have the best season last year. They've got a bit of a turnover in terms of both coaching and playing staff. Whether they will be able to push themselves up the table, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I think Aberystwyth and Surrey will just be looking at these games going, okay, we need to go one better than we did last year, and really look to sort of kick on and get playoff football and challenge to sort of move on up out of this tier.
Yeah, sorry, I've already seen the challenge that they have if they want to go one step further, don't they? In the Reading Knights and Sussex Saxons, they're going to have to make a real step up if they want to go one step further this year, because they've already seen it. So we'll see. And yeah, I'm interested to see what will happen with Solent, because they obviously had a tough season last season. Have they made that next step, which is never an easy feat, is it, to get that kickstart going? But you never know what once they do, that they're in that hotbed down there, aren't they, at the moment? A couple of national championship program near them, which that'll be coming in the next week or so, won't it, as well? So we'll talk about that in a second. But no, absolutely great to get your thoughts on what may or may not happen across these tiers next weekend. So Stuart, before we get out of here, you want to mention the last man standing competition?
Yeah, while we're still on the frame of BUCS, I'll cover it now. So launched it last weekend. Thank you very much to everybody that entered. 28 people in the end. We have already eliminated, they eliminated themselves. 2 contestants went out. 5 people didn't quite read the terms and conditions that required first name and surname. So we've got 5 people with just first names and no surnames. What we are discussing is whether we just cull you straight away and eliminate you, or whether we give you a chance to put the wrongs right and we can match up first names with surnames this week. So if you want to enter, feel free, but we've got the 28 people that entered from last week who will be the contestants that form this competition going forward. And I've got a little graphic going out which gives a few stats, and I'll be able to pick apart the spreadsheet when it comes in. It'll go out tomorrow morning, and yeah, I'll be able to pick apart the spreadsheets. Wow, there was a lot of Peter Piper pick up peppled there, didn't he? 4 stats for you. 6 people picked the UE Bullets. Pretty much used their banker on week 1, didn't they? There. No, don't give the game away. 5 people picked tier 2 teams. 10 people picked tier 1 teams, and 13 went with Premiership picks. So just an interesting spread there. Great to see people picking tier 2 teams, which was great, unless you picked the Worcester Royals. There was 2 games, as we've already covered. There's 2 games that led to free passes. So the Edinburgh the Edinburgh Mavericks and the Aberdeen Bulls didn't go ahead. The Kingston Cougars and Kent Falcons didn't go ahead. We've given I think it was 4 people. Yeah, 4 people that picked those 2 games. We've given you free passes. So yes, we will launch the form again tomorrow. That will go out on our stories. You'll have 24 hours till midday on Saturday. There's no Saturday fixtures this week, but we're leaving the deadline still as 12 to 12 midday on Saturday. Get your votes in. The form's sorted. It will go out, and I'll break it down Monday or Tuesday, and we'll see how many people are left standing.
Class. That's awesome. Well, brilliant. Great to get your thoughts on the weekend that was and the weekend that's coming. Like I mentioned before, we've got our Champion Series, our bonus pods coming out at the moment. So we landed the Bristol Aztecs conversation that me and Kiwi did. That came today. We've got the Solent Thrashers coming in the next couple of days, which is again me and Kiwi got in touch with them, and also we've got the London Blitz that we had as well. So we'll be getting in touch with Rushmore and Glasgow over the next couple of weeks as well. So go and have a look at those on our YouTube page. Have a little gander at what's happening over there, because we're bringing some great conversations with the best of our sport, which is always the fun part of this week. Of our job, isn't it? Our passion is to get in touch with those guys and get some insight from them. Before we get out of here, we've got a couple of other fixtures to talk about, haven't we, Stuart?
Yeah, last Saturday, alongside the UE Bullets live stream, there was 2 other under-19s regional games, so that series rounded itself off. Isaac, Team North beat SGS Pride. Don't know if you were there, whether you were involved with it at all. Team North won 13-9, so again a narrow victory, but a victory nonetheless. And Team South came up with I think it's their first win. Somebody might be able to correct me there, but they beat Team Midlands 34-0 over in Nottingham. That's played at David Ross as well. And then the lesser spotted midweek fixture, so it was actually this afternoon or this evening. There was an inter-services game. The RAF beat the Army 20 points to 14. I know that they jokingly put on their socials that it's not the only RAF versus Army fixture, because I believe that's happening in college football as well this weekend. So they tried to drum up a bit of support with a cheeky post there and a couple of tags. But fair play to the RAF. They beat Army this year and took away the Inter-Services Champions Trophy. There's a couple of highlight videos and celebration videos over on their Facebook page. If you want to go over and give them a follow, I'm sure they'd greatly appreciate it.
I don't think I realised there was a services game on this weekend in college football. I normally bet on them because they're always low scoring. So I have to go away and get that in my head for sure. No, great stuff. Awesome. Anything else before we get out of here? Make sure you head up over to our website as well. Have a look at Isaac's previews, and they come out every week and give you his insights into the game in a little bit more detail than what we can cover here. But otherwise, we will be live again next week. We'll give you a shout when that's going to happen, so you can get in touch with us and get involved in the conversation. Stuart, Isaac, thank you very much for joining us and giving your insights. Thank you to those who have watched and are going to listen. And we'll catch you again next week. Take care.